The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. My name is Mike, back with Sam. How we doing, Sam?
We're doing good, man. Happy September to all. We're getting closer week by week. And as always, thanks for sticking with us, folks. I know we're in the doldrums of the offseason, but I do think we've got a pretty good concept for today that if people don't like this one, they don't understand, man. It's all about the glass half full today. It's all about optimism season. We're going to do an entire episode devoted to optimism season. So if you're not going to like this one, you are a real hater, for real.
I think we need to just find a way to talk ourselves into this team in many ways. So for those who maybe have not heard us talk about optimism season before, you know, there's a new person every episode, I'd like to think, but maybe not in the middle of September, but optimism season essentially is what I have described over the years. After the off-season settles down, that's when fans just find a way to be excited about the team. And that's a good time of year, I think, because everyone is just sort of in the mode of saying, well, this could happen and it could be really great. And everyone feels good about the team. Of course, reality comes once the games tip and you have to figure out exactly where your team stands. It's a fun time to talk about basketball. That's
whiplash season, when things change very quickly in the first 2 weeks and you have 30 fan bases rapidly trying to reassess their positions. But
right.
we cross that bridge when we come to it. Again, right now we're in September and we get to be optimistic just as everyone else gets to be optimistic.
We were teed up by someone named Matt Ishbia to have this conversation. And look, we haven't talked about this on the podcast.
This is
Matt
old
Ishbia
news at this point, but it's so silly. It's so silly.
There was a website that said ESPN's NBA insiders ranked the Phoenix Suns as one of the teams most likely to tumble in the upcoming 2025-2026 NBA season. And he retweeted that, Matt Ishbia, the owner of the Phoenix Suns, and said, "I'm not worried what the so-called experts think. They had us as a title contender the past 2 years and were wrong then. We're focused on making our fans proud by playing great as a team and building a brand of basketball that's tough and gritty." Funny tweet overall. Look, I will say this. Like, I understand where he's coming from. Like, ignore this. He wants to sell tickets to the games, of course. But the idea of saying they were the only ones that had us as title contenders and were wrong is hilarious to me, because who else did? I think the entire Phoenix Suns organization thought they were building a title contender, and it's worse when they're wrong than when the ESPN experts are wrong when it comes to a fan base.
Matt Ishbia of the famous, 29 or 26, whatever he said, GMs would switch places with us, quote, is a very funny self-own. This is just a very funny self-own. We don't have to dwell on it because I know, like, this is low-hanging fruit for a lot of the league. Just being honest, we are low-hanging fruit for a lot of the league, and so if you're a Suns fan, you get it enough from other sources. You don't have to hear it from us too. But like, Matt could have just said the second part, just roll with the punches. Say we're focused on making our fans proud by playing great as a team, building a brand of basketball. It's tough and gritty, yada, yada, yada. You don't need to make it so easy for them, is my wish. I don't think he's listening, but in case he is, just don't make it easy. Just, this is the season of we're in our rolling with the punches, focusing on doing the hard work era. That is what this current era of Phoenix Suns basketball is about. We've got fewer national TV games this year, way fewer. It's about getting back into the lab and sort of rebuilding the reputation a little bit. And it is what it is. I think Ishbia is just an owner who's going to have these sort of foot in mouth comments sometimes, and it's not the ends of the world, but it is amusing. Yeah.
It's unnecessary, I think, to say anything at all. If you are going to say something, maybe don't mention the part where you tried to build a title contender by trading all your assets and then you didn't. But, there's a way of saying that these guys are wrong all the time and ignore that. We're trying to build something new and start a new culture for the Phoenix Suns. There's a way to say that, I think, without the self-own. But overall, I think what this post by Matt Ishbia says is that he is fully in optimism season as well. He's in optimism season, and he's trying to bring fans along. So that's where we come in, and it's up to us to find a way for an entire episode, at the very least, to be optimistic. I'll be honest. I'm going to do this in my own way. I don't know how it's possible for me. Like, I'm not going to try to convince everyone on this episode that the Suns could win an NBA title next season. Like, we have to be sort of realistic within our most optimistic takes, and I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah, I don't think it's a productive... You and I were discussing before we got on here, I don't know if we're going to bring up every player in this episode. I think we're going to talk about most of them for sure, and sort of what the best case scenarios, the reasonable best case scenarios for most guys on the roster are. But it's not a productive conversation, even if we're trying to be optimistic, for us to be like, this guy's an all-star, that guy's an all-star, they're winning the title. Like, we're doing it within reason. So I think it's what is like a 90th percentile outcome for every player on the team, or most players on the team. And, maybe a little bit less about the numbers in this episode, because, again, longtime listeners know we're going to get to the numbers. We're going to do the over-under episode sometime in the next few weeks. That is your opportunity, in particular, Mike, to set the lines. We'll come back here. We'll discuss where we think the numbers are going to fall. Today is, I think, more about the high-level conceptual stuff, right? And so just kind of what are the main skills, what are the main pressure points that if this guy adds X, it's going to make the team this much more dangerous. If that guy adds Y. I think that's the sort of stuff we're going to be talking about.
Let's start with an overall question about what is the most optimistic you can be about this team as a whole. Essentially, if everything goes right for the Phoenix Suns next season, that includes every player, Jordan Ott, everyone on the same page, everyone working collectively to make this thing work next season, what essentially would the ceiling be for this team? Now, we went through the entire Western Conference on our last episode here on this main feed. We talked about the entire NBA, and I think we showed how difficult it would be, I think, to be sort of a top 6 team in the Western Conference. I think that is the type of thing, even in a most optimistic case for the Phoenix Suns, I would doubt that it would be possible, even if everything worked correctly, for them to get all the way up there.
I think they could.
Save for a massive leap by, it would have to be, I think, 2 players on the team, which I guess if you're trying to be ultra optimistic, that could be the case. But for me, that's kind of where, like a 7 seed, which I guess is still the play-in, but like in a prime position to actually make the first round of the playoffs. And I think that sort of first round of the playoffs, that's probably the optimistic take for this team, which, don't get me wrong, I think a lot of people might hear that and consider that a failure. I don't think it would be. I think you have a lot of young players on this team, and if you make the playoffs with contributions from the young players on this team, that's a success, because you have somewhere to go and you have some trade value from them where you can try to improve year over year. But what do you think?
Certainly the way that people would be talking about us would be different after a playoff run like that. Yeah, I think 7th. This is optimism season, Mike. You're underselling it a little bit, I think.
I'm being optimistic. I know think you are. Not I know that in my outside of today. So I wouldn't put them as a 7 seed.
Yeah, of course. I mean, they're 13th in the FanDuel over-under.
Yeah, so that's 6 spots higher. That's pretty optimistic.
What I am saying is, I have lived, and I know you have too, through a Suns team that was predicted to win 20 games and won 48. And yes, that team finished 9th in the Western Conference. We're, of course, talking about the Goran Dragic, Eric Bledsoe Suns back in 2013-14. Gerald Green coming out of nowhere. Mason Plumlee coming out of nowhere. Channing Frye, major bounce back season. So, for me, no one's going to call this team a championship contender. Strange things have happened. I am not going to rule out the possibility in the most optimistic scenarios that they are a 4th, 5th, 6th seed in the Western Conference. I would not rule out that possibility. What would need to go right in that scenario? First things first, Devin Booker is an MVP.
We have to start there, yeah.
If
they're in the top 4, I think he's
playing 75 plus games, and he has ascended in a way where just everything has clicked into place. The level of engagement, defensive activity, offensive ability just to like make every single guy 2 through 15 better. Shooting percentages have to be at a place where they've never been before. I think just energy and like his level, I would almost start before even talking about any of the like basketball skills. I just want, in an optimistic scenario, I want everyone to be having fun. Devin Booker is old now relative to this roster. He's on this roster. He is
on this roster, yes. Who is the oldest player?
He is. Is he not?
Yeah, is it him? Yeah, it must be him.
Hold on. I'll pull that up. It's either him or Royce, I would guess.
It's Royce, and then Nigel Hayes-Davis, Grayson Allen, Dylan Brooks, and then Devin Booker.
Okay,
so he's 5th.
That's actually interesting that many guys are older than Book, but I need him to feed off the youthful energy of the rest of the guys on this roster a little bit in a way that says, they're being competitive, they're trying to win games, but they're doing so in a way that he's having fun. He is energized again. So much of the Suns last year was just defined by this apathy. It wasn't even that guys looked miserable. They just looked apathetic and lethargic for a large portion of the season. So we need to get that energy back. Devin Booker's going to lead the way there. If at all this team is going to succeed. But I do think a lot of the guys they added to, like Dylan Brooks is going to be a huge catalyst for this. Their ability to be energetic.
Let's stay on Devin Booker a little bit.
Okay, go ahead.
His career high in scoring, 22-23, 27.8 points per game, 5.5 assists in that season. That was the season, I think, where, in a way, his assists sort of went down from what they were, but his scoring did go up. I think there's like a season for Devin Booker where his scoring is less than that, but his assists are like higher, like, over 7 assists per game. So we might see a season like where he's like 25, 26 points per game, but 7 assists or something, like 7.5 assists. And, when we get to the over-unders, we'll talk about our confidence in these types of numbers. I don't know if I'll do this exact thing, but we'll see when we get there. But overall, I think there's a world where the overall stats don't like completely pop. Now they can, like he could have a 30-point per game scoring season or something like that, and that could get you there. But I also think there's a world where that's not necessarily what it is. It's everything else clicks in a way. I think you talked about defensive intensity right away, and I think that's something that matters. This team, they have to build a good defense in order to work. They're trying to build a good defense, and they're really kind of trying to hang their hat on that effort and intensity.
That's just one of those skills that is the most contagious of any skill on a basketball court. And again, last year, if you look at the roster, when 2 or 3 or 4 out of 5 guys at any time are out of place and playing with this lack of energy, it is an infectious thing, and it absolutely affected Devin Booker as well. So he needs to get his defensive mojo back, because we know he's been capable of much better defensive output in the past.
What has to happen for him, though?
The scoring thing is funny.
If the overall numbers stats don't pop, like in a way that you're like, wow, when you look at his basketball reference, it's the on-off stats. Those are the ones that have to pop. Like, you have to look at this team and say, wow, when Devin Booker's on the floor, they are playing like an elite level team. When he's off the floor, they're still good, because you can't just completely crater in order to be like a top team in the West. They have to still be good, which we'll talk about the guys that can help with that in a little bit. But they have to be an elite level team when he's on the floor. He has to have an MVP level impact. And that means that it's not necessarily 30 points and 8 assists per game that'll do it, which, of course, if he does do that, that'll help. But if it's normal stats to his regular season, but the on-off stats are just popping, that's, I think, a way to get you there.
keep in mind with the stats thing too, like just how often he's going to be doubled this season. I think he's ready for that challenge. I think we have 10 years at this point, however long he's been in the league, 10 years of evidence of mounting evidence of his ability to play against doubles. But maybe this is the Trae Young season for Devin Booker in terms of stat line, right? Yeah. 24 points, 12 assists per game. Could he do that? Get up to 12 assists a game? No, probably not. There's going to be a lot of hockey assists in there. And that's where, as we talk about kind of who these other guys are, Booker has to be the leader. This is his team now, and everyone knows it. But all of these other guys around him, all of the various role players and the sort of adjacent, not quite stars, but maybe stars on a good day, all of them need to be taking leaps too, and we'll cover all of these guys.
And for Booker too, it's a leadership thing, and this is kind of a tough conversation, I think, to have, to do like honest analysis about is leadership, because we're just not there, and nobody's really there but the players and the coaches. They're the only ones that know what's going on with the team. But the successful teams that the Phoenix Suns have had Chris Paul, he's just like this overall, he has so much gravity as a leader that I think he kind of sucks up all the air in the room when he's there. He's just going to. And then Kevin Durant, who was Devin Booker's, that's his favorite player when he was growing up. So, of course, Devin Booker's going to defer to Kevin Durant, not to say that he wasn't showing leadership in either of those eras of the team. I think that he probably was. But this team that we have starting this season, definitively Devin Booker's, which is a conversation we're going to continue to have. Definitively his. And that means the level of leadership that he has to display in order to get them to be a success is going to be beyond what he's done in the past. And that's not to say that if they're not a success, it's entirely on his leadership. Obviously, the players have to be good enough. The coaching staff has to be good enough. Everything has to work for it to be a success. But he has to be the kind of leader that can really rally a team and get them together and make sure they're all on the same page. And, there's other guys on the team that have to do that too. I think, Dylan Brooks, Royce O'Neal, some of the veterans have to do it as well. But a lot is on his shoulders when it comes to that this coming season.
Who's the second most important player to talk about here? It's got to be Jalen Green.
It's definitely Jalen Green, yeah.
I mean, I think you could make a case for, if we're talking about best case scenarios, Mark Williams, the type of impact that Mark Williams could have. We'll get there.
Yeah, Dylan Brooks, too. I think Dylan Brooks could be really important for this team.
But we'll start with Jalen Green, because I think we all understand that, a lot is resting on Jalen Green's shoulders here. If this is meant to be a good team, it's also possible that, behind the scenes, the way the front office views it is that maybe they don't have huge expectations of Jalen Green, and they're trying to up his trade value and something like that. But if they want to be good, Jalen Green needs to be good.
Yeah, and even from a trade value perspective. But let me start this conversation this way. I did a little research on Jalen Green. What I did is I looked at where he ranks, like the main people that rank overall players in the NBA, The Ringer, ESPN, NBA 2K. I looked at those three things. I want to start this conversation here. NBA 2K26, we'll start there, has him 61st overall, the 61st best player in the NBA overall. He's an 83 overall based on their ranking. He's tied with Desmond Bane, Jared Allen, Miles Turner, Cameron Johnson, Dyson Daniels, and Kobe White. Those are the other 83s. For the record, Devin Booker's still a 91 in NBA 2K. If NBA 2K matters to you, there's where he is. The other two are so-called experts, right? As Matt Ishbia would say. ESPN had him 69th overall, so in a relatively similar place to where NBA 2K26 had him. The type of players that are above him, this was, by the way, I should say, before last season, because they haven't released their list for this coming season. We'll see where he is there.
Can you talk me through a little bit what compels you to research the 2K ratings here?
Yes. I want to talk about where he could rank in a best case scenario.
Okay, cool. All right.
Like where he would have to be overall in the NBA for the Suns to be like a legitimate playoff contender. Not championship contender, but like to make the playoffs. ESPN and him 69th. The guys that were over him: Brandon Miller, Malik Monk,
Wow.
Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett. And then the worst one for this case here, The Ringer. The Ringer, most interestingly, updated theirs throughout the season. So they have their 100, the Ringer 100, which is the 100 best players in the NBA ranked. That is sort of a living, breathing ranking system that moves players around by polling all of their NBA experts throughout the NBA season. They have him 98th overall.
Mm-hmm.
Guys above him: Mitchell Robinson, Jalen Duren, Herb Jones, and maybe the most painful of all, just to point it out, Tumani Kamara.
Yeah,
above
in that
him on
case,
this list.
Truly sort of devaluing the scoring. And I understand it from a perspective, like I've made this case in the past too. It's never been this easy to score 20 points per game in the NBA, literally in the history of the league. So if you're a guy like Jalen Green, who averages 21 points per game, that's impressive, but it's not as impressive as it was 20 years ago. It's just not. And then it makes sense to me that an outlet like The Ringer is going to be more likely to feature those utility role players, even like Mitchell Robinson, who averages 6 points per game, but potentially that they would rank him
plays
above.
like 30 games a year.
Right.
Two players below him, I just wanted to point this out, not for the Optimism season thing, just for a funny point. Jordan Poole and Bradley Beal.
Oh my
One of the
God.
two players.
He
below Jalen
certainly
Green.
needs to be better than those two guys. I think he can.
Now, to me, the optimistic case for Jalen Green, like, I think there's a world where his offense is essentially exactly the same. Now, I think his efficiency going up is important, but if his offense stays exactly the same, but he finds a new dedication to defense and just playing really great defense and doing all of the little things right. So I shouldn't say his offense entirely the same. I should say his scoring and assists entirely the same. But like doing all the right things offensively by moving around correctly. But also if he's capable of becoming someone who sort of hangs his hat on his ability to play defense. Now, it's not common that guys do that in their fifth year and just become a new guy like that. But I don't think it's completely out of the question that guys can sort of change what they're capable of and what their roles are, especially after a trade. I think that's the type of thing that could make a massive difference for him. Now, having said that, we've had a lot of conversations about his offense and how he could improve that offense, and I think those could have a pretty large impact as well. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I want him to compete on defense. I don't even necessarily need him to be good. He's, kind of short and skinny. We know that. I just want him to compete. I think it's interesting that you focus on defense first, though, because my mind immediately went to offense with Jalen Green. I think, again, trying to be optimistic but realistic. I don't believe Jalen Green is going to be a superstar next year who suddenly averages 26 points and 7 assists a game and is just, I don't think that's going to happen. But I think there's a really, really good supercharged offensive version of him that is much better and much more efficient than he was in the first 4 years of his career that exists if you don't try to make him what he's not. If you focus less on let's make this guy a point guard and focus on his ability to play make for others and actually feature all of the things that in theory is the reason why you brought in Jordan Ott to be his head coach in the first place, right? Jalen Green, if we're looking at it through the rose-colored glasses, he's never played alongside a player as talented as Devin Booker. He just hasn't. He's never had that sort of pressure release valve next to him. He's never really been encouraged to play in anything resembling a motion offense. That's just Houston has had historically really bad ball movement over the last few years. Maybe part of that is because of Jalen Green and the way he wants to play. But I'm choosing to believe for this episode that that's not the way that he wants to play and that a lot of these habits are fixable. So that Jordan Ott is a guy who can come in and encourage him to move without the ball, to fill lanes, to shoot quickly after handoffs, to again, focus less on being the primary initiator, but more the second side guy who can confidently attack an already shifting defense because Devin Booker is going to be the guy who shifts it in the first place. And then he can swing to Jalen Green, and then Jalen Green can focus on doing what he does best, which is having a lightning quick first step, having those 4 years of NBA experience at this point to say he can go and finish over the top of basically anyone at the rim, or he can make the right pass and whatever happens. Obviously, he's going to take a lot of threes too. In a best case scenario, he's shooting a better percentage than he has in the past. Maybe that goes up to 36, 37%, whatever. He needs to shoot better on pull-up threes. There's all sorts of stuff here. But I really think, the common denominator for him is just going to be about mindset. And, yeah, he's never played with anyone like Devin Booker. So, again, that's where it starts.
Who do you think that's comparable to? Like the optimistic version of Jalen Green? Because this is sort of why I wanted to think about it. Because I think if the Suns are let's say they're a 6 seed. I'm sort of meeting you halfway here. I know you said 4, but let's say you were thinking 5 and I'm thinking 7 and we're saying sure. 6 now. How good is Jalen Green in that scenario? Because the other thing is, when Devin Booker's off the floor, somebody has to confidently run the offense. And the player most capable of doing that currently is probably him. It's not to say he won't have help. Like maybe Colin Gillespie, we'll talk about him at some point, makes some sort of mini leap as well. And that's how they're capable of finding an offense with 2 guys on the floor like that. But are we talking Jamal Murray? Almost an all-star. Derek White
Zach
is
LaVine.
Another example. Zach LaVine,
but competes on defense.
Yeah, that's why Derek White came to mind for me.
Derek White, he's got a long way to go to be good at the things that Derek White is good at. It's such a different player. But yes, maybe something like that. Yeah, it's less about the points per game and more just about the confidence to do what's right in the right moments.
Yeah.
Has Jamal Murray, thinking back to your Murray comp, has he always done that or did a lot? Yeah, I feel like Jamal Murray has been propped up so much by Jokic throughout his career. I don't know how much respect I truly have for Jamal Murray. I guess he's a really good player.
He's never been an all-star.
Right. Yeah, maybe that's a decent comp then. It's just that Jamal Murray's so much more of a floor general. And I'm sort of saying that's not what I want. But Murray's also, he's a great mover without the ball.
I think there's
I can't think of a better comp than that.
My optimistic version, yeah, and look, it's going to look different because all NBA players are different. I'm more thinking about where he would rank NBA wise if we're thinking. I don't even know where Jamal Murray would be. In fact, I can take a quick.
No, I think you're right. You're talking about so what you
40th,
exactly
45th best player.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So 2K said 60th. ESPN said 60 something.
Okay, so the Ringer has him 29th. Jamal Murray, NBA 2K has him 44th. ESPN, let's see, has him not ranked. Is he not on this list? I don't know where ESPN has him, so maybe they didn't have him on the list because he was injured or something.
I think you're generally right that you're talking about Jalen Green. Can he be a top 50 player? Can he be a borderline top 40 player in the NBA? We're not talking about... the goal at this point for me at least is not that you're all NBA. It's not. We're simplifying your role a little bit to where we want you to be really, really good at certain things, but you don't have to do everything.
I do think he has to get better at passing, and I think there is a world where he does. I think efficiency usually tends to get slightly better as scorers get older in the NBA. They just understand defenses better. They understand picking their spots better. And usually when players play next to offensive players with as much gravity as Devin Booker, that will help their efficiency. So I think his efficiency will get better. Passing, there are guys who are just great at passing from the moment they get into the league. And there are guys who make marginal improvements of passing over time and just get slightly better and slightly better every season. Giannis is a good example of a player who couldn't pass when he got to the NBA and got way better at it as his career went along. And I think there's a world where Jalen Green just gets marginally better, maybe averages 5 assists next year as a passer, and that's really, really helpful for the Suns when Devin Booker is off the floor, especially in an offense I think that works in the way that Jordan Otts does. And actually, can we talk about Jordan Ott real quick too? This is going to be a long episode. we can try to speed it up a little bit.
We'll speed it up with some of the bench guys, but sure. These are the most important guys on the team. That's where most of the wins are going to come from. Let's be honest.
Yes, because okay, so here's the optimist take of Jordan Ott, and it starts with a quick conversation about Mike Budenholzer. The optimistic take on Jordan Ott versus Mike Budenholzer starts with a very clear, I think it was a disaster for the Suns last season, coaching-wise. I think it was just bad the entire season. I don't think Mike Budenholzer was ever on the same page as his star players. I don't think that they consistently played in a way that made their players better over the course of the season for any long stretch of the season. There were leaks about how the players felt. There were leaks about a disconnect between Devin Booker and Mike Budenholzer. And I think even if you're going with a pessimistic take, you still would start at last season was a disaster, coaching-wise.
Yeah.
So to me, it's not difficult to make an optimistic take when it comes to Jordan Ott. But having said that, to make it optimistic, look at the Cleveland Cavaliers offense. Look at the Cleveland Cavaliers defense. This is the team that he came from. They have, I think, the most interesting and possibly outside of the Golden State Warriors, most sophisticated offense in the NBA. Now, a lot of teams are going to take on a lot of what Cleveland did last year based on their success. But if all of that works for the Suns offensively in particular, I think they can find a way to optimize their best players in a way that Mike Budenholzer was never capable of. Second part to that, Devin Booker was in the interviews with Jordan Ott. He was part of the committee that chose him as a coach. Them being on the same page, not hard to envision, not hard to picture here. And I think with Jordan Ott, understanding that this is Devin Booker's team and not maybe having another big fish, if you will, in Kevin Durant in the locker room, that relationship is likely going to be very important for both of them. So having a good relationship with your star player and other star players, if some emerge, like Jalen Green, I think that's not hard to envision. And finding a way to have a more sophisticated and more offensively, like an offense with more movement specifically, I think is not very hard to envision. Like Kevin Durant, very good, but didn't like to do a lot of that. So it's not hard to envision without him either. So for him, it's kind of easy to be optimistic at this point. We haven't seen him coach, so there's nothing really to say anything bad about. Like even Mike Budenholzer had a pretty poor ending with Giannis at the end there. But with Ott, it's all positive here. I'm only feeling good about him right now. We'll see, a few months from now. But right now, very easy to be optimistic.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And obviously we have the right to change our opinions once we start seeing evidence if there's stuff that looks really bad. But right now with Ott, it just makes sense also that he's a young coach. You give him a young team. He's going to start from a position of strength with Devin Booker. I think you're right because Booker was part of that process. But for the rest of those guys, I don't see why he would have any trouble motivating all of the very young players on this team who should be hungry and, have not earned massive contracts yet, at least the vast majority of them, and have not earned massive roles in the NBA yet. So they're all going to have these chips on their shoulder to varying degrees. And are just younger players who are, I think, ready for a more modern style of basketball and a faster brand of basketball. So I feel really good about Jordan Ott. I think they gave him the right roster. Of course, at various points this offseason, I've thought to myself, they could use another veteran here, another steadying presence there. And to a certain degree, I still feel that. But really, it's a good time. We're starting from a good position with Jordan Ott. I think there's no reason to question him right now.
I want to ask you, as we go into this next part here, who is the next most important player? Because I'm kind of split between a couple of players here on I want to talk about.
No, I mean, you could go in a bunch of different directions. But honestly, man, if we're just talking about next year, and I think this episode is just about next year, we've done our episodes that are about long-term ceilings and all that. I think you got to go Mark Williams next. Because I'm curious who even else you were thinking about.
Ryan Dunn.
Yeah, he's important. I like Ryan Dunn a lot, but if Mark Williams is A, healthy, and B, good, it's a game changer for this team.
I agree, because those are the two guys I was thinking about. So I think it's close. But I think with Mark Williams, to make an optimistic case here too, the Suns had the worst center rotation in the NBA last season.
Yeah, so you think it's pretty obvious to make the case, you're saying.
Yeah, I don't think it's like for Jordan Ott, I'm being genuine. I feel optimistic. For other guys, I'm trying to push myself there and get there and make the case. And for Mark Williams too, it's clear for him he has to play games. Like the most optimistic version of him is he plays a bunch of games. I'm not going to put a number on that because I think it's kind of weirdly morbid to talk about it in that way, but play a lot, play enough to make a massive difference on this team. But he's going to be, in the games he does play, he's going to be an upgrade on what the Suns had last year,
huge,
possibly even the year before, even though Nurkic was pretty good that year, defensively in particular, but probably even better than the year before.
He'll be a huge upgrade over Nurkic too. I mean, I think Mark Williams actually last season had a solid, he doesn't have the same vision as Nurkic at his best, but had a pretty good assist turnover ratio. The finishing is just not close, Mike. It's not even close. And Mark Williams, like Nurkic, when Nurkic was at his best, will be able to inhale rebounds, but he doesn't come with the complete lack of mobility defensively. Like, there are some concerns about Mark Williams' ability to actually protect the rim, but I think generally speaking, injury concerns and all, he's a guy who's not super fat and is going to be able to run the floor. He's just not. He's not.
No, he's super athletic.
He's built. He's athletic. He has a history of foot injuries, and that is a major concern. But when he's out there, he can run the floor, and he can help you push the pace a little bit. Now, there are also going to be lots of possessions, I think, and this is something that Ott is going to have to decide. How many possessions are we going to let Mark Williams just try to cook in the post? Because he can do it. Is it the type of offense that's really conducive to all the other principles that you want to run? That's a conversation for the coaching staff. But at his base level, he's going to inhale rebounds. We know that his free throw shooting has gotten better every single year. He shot 80% last year. And in a best case scenario, maybe he's at 85 this year. Who knows? He's literally gone from 60 to 80 in 3 years. He starts taking a couple threes a game, but is still mostly focused on being an inside force. That's a best case scenario for Mark Williams. And then, of course, let's say he plays, 2/3 of the season or something.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, he has to play enough. And I think, offensively, what did he average? 15 points?
Yeah,
last
15
year?
and 10.
Yeah.
In 26 minutes.
And that's with the passer at the level of LaMelo Ball, who, to be frank, didn't play a lot either. So, he probably played games without him as well. But, if he doesn't, I'm not saying he needs to average even 18 or 19 or 20. If he can just do 15 and 10 again next year, but improve his rim protection, improve his defense overall, he's going to make a massive difference for this team compared to previous seasons. I think he can do better offensively. I think there's a world where he can do better offensively. Devin Booker would be obviously a very, very important part for that. If he increases his assists, find ways to get him the ball in places that make sense. He can catch lobs. They don't have a ton of lob passers on this team, but the good news is for him, it's not all he's good at. If you get him the ball right at the rim, he can get up and score. Even if he's catching it a little bit lower, he can still get up quick off the floor and score in a way that just Nurkic could not do. He needed to load up like you're shooting a cannon in the 1600s, and you don't need to do that for Mark Williams. He can actually get up off the floor like a trampoline and get it in the bucket. So I think for him, defense is going to be really important. When I talk about this team being good, I will continue to say they need to find a way to put together a good defense. They're very clearly trying to do that. And after the last 2 years, they have a long way to build because the defense was so awful, specifically last year. But the center position cannot be a terrible defensive player in order for a team to have good defense. They just have to be solid. And I think he just needs to be solid for them to find a way to do that. If he's great, if he becomes a shot blocker, he's got the wingspan, he's got the athleticism. If he becomes a really excellent rim protector based on, Jordan Ott's previous work with guys like Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, and he finds ways to tap into that with Mark Williams, that's great. That's as good as it can get. But if he's just good, if he finds a way to be good and still do the things he's good at offensively, massive, massive improvements for the Suns at that position. It's just really difficult to field a good team and have zero good center minutes And for him to have some of those good minutes, it'll make a huge difference. Okay, let's talk about Ryan Dunn. Now, I will say, before we jump directly into the Ryan Dunn conversation, I think you can make a case that Dillon Brooks is the next most important player. But to me, if the Suns reach their ceiling next year, it means a leap came from Ryan Dunn. A leap from Ryan Dunn that makes him one of the better perimeter defenders in the league and someone who finds a consistent role on offense in a way that benefits the team, because he's likely going to be the starter from the beginning of the season. As the starter on this team that is a starting forward, he needs to be an excellent, excellent defender, and it's in him. It's in him to be that good of a defender, and if it comes this season, that's why I put him so high on this list, because I keep talking about the defense. I think his growth in this coming season is going to be vitally important for this team. But what do you think about Ryan Dunn next?
Yeah, I think Dunn was a natural next place to go just because he's fun to think about as a younger player on this team. I think maybe next what we could do is get to the tier of not just Dillon Brooks, but I would call them just like the low ceiling veterans. What is a reasonable expectation in a best case scenario from I would
Brooks,
just cover
Royce, and Grayson. Yeah.
Let's do Brooks. Yeah. So next we'll do Brooks, Royce, and Grayson all at once. But for now, just starting with Dunn, the obvious thing is shooting. Yeah, we want him to shoot a better percentage. We want him to look more confident in his stroke. I almost feel like that's just not interesting analysis because I don't really think there's anything else to say there.
It feels, look, maybe I'm stupid.
It feels lazy.
It also feels given. Like it feels given he's going to get a little bit better at offense. And it's not. It's not always given, but it just feels like somebody who works as hard as him is going to get a little bit better offensively.
Well, I think the way he's going to get better offensively too. Like I think the shooting is a given. I've said it before. They really found something with him as a role threat last year, and I think if he comes in, we're talking about how it's optimism season. It's also muscle watch season. If he comes in with 10 pounds of muscle on that frame, he will be capable, I think, of making quicker and sturdier decisions as a role threat and being able to finish over the top of guys. So I'm really excited to see how Ott uses him as a screener. I think he's more than capable of it. But you're right, defensively is where he has to make his impact, and this is where it's been a little bit of theoretical value for Ryan Dunn coming out of college. We all know what he's capable of as a defender. We've seen the highlight blocks, but it's time for it to be more of a staple of the team's defense and really, something that he imposes on other teams. He needs to strike a little bit more fear in these teams on a possession-by-possession basis and be ready to take on just some of the greatest challenges as a point-of-attack defender.
I'm talking like optimistic case for him. I'm talking like January 5th. I'm tweeting out, Ryan Dunn needs to be on an all-defensive team, and it gets 1,000 likes because Suns fans are all on board. Like that's the kind of defensive play from him that is the optimistic case that can raise this team to another level defensively.
Or just, getting to the point where as a meme you can tweet just Ryan Dunn, and
we need Mikal Bridges. Yeah.
Exactly. Because that was my first thought when you said that. It's like Ryan Dunn becomes such a fan favorite that his name alone just kind of garners this adoration from the entire fan base. Maybe it's already kind of that way with Dunn. I think people like Dunn across the board, but he could give us a little bit more.
You need to be good to reach that level of adoration, I think, like the team. And he can be a real big part of that. And I honestly think, I would venture to say the reason I wanted him this high is I don't think there's a world where they're as good as we're talking about optimistically without him having a leap. Now, it doesn't have to be like a star level leap, but I'm talking a leap in where he's just so much better than last season in a way that's tangible and makes the team better right now. We're not just talking potential anymore. We're talking actual improvements that help the team in its current state. And I don't think that's like out of the question for him. Like, I think that's actually possible. I think we're trying to be semi-realistic in what's possible for him. It's a little tougher in that I think he's going to be playing out of position a little bit. But Dillon Brooks, and we can talk about him next, can guard a little bigger, and he's going to be asked to do that. Like, he's going to be guarding LeBron if we play the Lakers, and we're going to be putting Ryan Dunn on Luka or something like that. It's what I would expect, right?
Yeah, I'm obviously concerned about that as well, and I've talked about that, but he needs to use the extra foot speed that he's going to have over guys to his advantage and leverage that in ways that maybe he wasn't able to always last year. And, just hopefully a year of NBA experience and quicker processing speed is going to allow him to kind of leave some guys in the dust. So, if he's matching up with like truly large fours who have still, let's say, 20, 30 pounds on him. Like we've talked about with Oso, who we're going to get to, I'm sure. But when Oso is playing as a small ball five, what he can do against guys who are a lot bigger and more kind of bumbling than him, Ryan's going to have to do the same.
Dylan Brooks. I'm not. Is it pessimistic to say I just want him to be as good as he's ever been? I just don't want him to be worse in any way.
Well, yeah. So this is the tier of guys. Again, it's like Dylan Brooks, Royce, and Grayson. In a best case scenario, they're all like good.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah,
they're not going to be. None of these guys are going to be all stars. None of these guys are going to be terrible. These are guys who are in the primes of their careers, and what is reasonable for us to expect. If you're Dylan Brooks, he's had seasons like last year where he shot 39% from three. He's also had seasons where he shot 31% from three. So obviously it starts there. We need a good shooting season. He's had an ability to put the ball in the basket before as like a post-up threat. He's been historically throughout his career a good post-up threat. That's not something I want them going to all the time, but it's just nice to know that he has it in his bag.
Yeah.
But again, like Ryan Dunn, it's about defense. It's what can Dylan Brooks do to imprint the game through his defense, and honestly to bring a level of chaos and energy that when I talk about it being infectious, like I don't want just Dylan Brooks to play like a crazy person next year, which I kind of, defensively I want him to do. I want him to encourage Grayson Allen and Royce O'Neal to play like crazy people. I often felt that those two were frustratingly, when I talk about the apathy of the Suns, those two are, in my opinion, kind of exhibit A and B of I was frustrated for vast majorities of the season with what I felt was a defensive apathy coming from Grayson and Royce. And I don't think it was just them. It was obviously Book and Beal and KD and kind of everyone. But I think a guy like Brooks is going to be able to right the ship, not just because of what he does on defense, but he needs to be on these other guys' ass. And he's almost going to be playing like an assistant coach role next to Ott a little bit, I think, and sort of next to DeMare Carroll as well, who I know is going to be on these guys' ass too.
I think it's right to group those guys together, but I think Dylan Brooks has to be the best of those three. He just has to, because he's going to have the toughest defensive assignments. He makes the most, because he is the best player of those three.
Are we ruling out the Grayson Norm Powell year 10 leap? Is that possible for Grayson?
Yeah, we'll talk about it. But for Dylan Brooks, he is tasked with setting the tone defensively in a way that other guys have to set the tone offensively. Jalen Green, Devin Booker in particular. Dylan Brooks has to set the tone defensively. That means when they talk about the culture moves they're making, I don't have a source on this for the record, but to me, when they were making the trade with Houston, they put Dylan Brooks' name down first. That was the expectation. We get him first because he's a guy that can help our culture and try to set the tone defensively for what we want to do. Hard workers, hard workers, hard workers. They talk about it all the time. He has to do that. So he has to be the best of those three. And I don't think it's I think for him, we're just asking him to be who he was last year. And if he can be who he was last year, that's a win for the Suns. That makes him pretty good. I think that's considered optimistic. Just don't take any dumb shots. Occasional dumb shots is fine.
Let's be real.
Yeah, it's fine.
He's gonna take dumb shots.
But don't make
that's who Dylan Brooks is.
Don't make that his modus operandi. Do that sometimes, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Grayson and Royce.
Grayson and Royce aren't gonna take dumb shots, and I think that's sort of the value in them historically. Is these guys are from, in my mind, the James Jones era of team building, which is that they're really smart players who are skill-based and don't make a ton of mistakes. And that's great. There's an inherent, it's good. There's an inherent value in it. But we need a little bit more of the nasty. I almost feel with Grayson sometimes that I was just sold a false bill of goods. I was expecting this evil person. based on what his early NBA reputation is. And I actually feel like, having watched Grayson on the Suns for 2 years now, that he's a phenomenal shooter, and he's kind of solid at all of these secondary skills, but he's also quite clean cut these days. And I haven't seen the edge from him or Royce. We need that to come out.
You want some nasty? Yeah. Yeah. He's married now, you know? Like, I don't know if he has that, but yeah, I want some nasty too. I want them to be a little bit hated. You know, that's a good thing to be if you're doing it and stringing along some wins as a result of that, and Grayson can bring that. But yeah, for those guys, it's the same thing. Like, really, for Grayson, you kind of want the best season of his career. That's the optimistic take. For Royce, you just want him to be as consistent as he's been, but I want that effort to be there throughout the entire season. Last year, he lost it for the last 2 months of the season. I don't even blame him for that. I don't. I think, like, the veterans see the writing on the wall first. They've been in the league long enough. They understand what's coming. At a certain point, they go into, he's the oldest player on the team. They go into, like, self-preservation mode. I'm not going to get hurt for this team that's barely trying. That's clearly going to trade Kevin Durant.
Sure.
So for him, I just want him to have high level, high effort, high energy throughout the season and be as consistent as he's been throughout his career. Launch those threes, occasionally shoot layups if you get to the rim, and that's really it. Just be the guy that you've been.
You know what's interesting? So we haven't seen any photos, as long as we're, talking about Grayson. The big story of last year with Grayson obviously was putting on like 20 pounds, which I think most people now agree was a mistake. I wonder where his body is at right now. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think we've seen any photos of Grayson this offseason. So I think it's just going to be a fun surprise to see like where he's at on media day. Like, did they completely reverse direction and say, no, actually we want you lean again?
Yeah.
Or I could see them just fully leaning into it, because unfortunately this team still has a glut of shooting guard small forwards and not a lot of power forwards. So there's totally a reasonable expectation that guys like Grayson and Royce are still going to have to battle for rebounds. They're still going to have to be physical and body up against guys who are bigger than them on a fairly routine basis. So, yeah, I just wonder where Grayson's body is at right now, what they've been telling him.
One more optimistic case for Grayson. Really good under Frank Vogel. Really, really good. Earned his contract. Some people say he's overpaid now, but like he earned it that year. It didn't feel like an overpay at the time. It felt, like a lot, but not like an overpay.
Still doesn't really feel like an overpay to me, honestly. Maybe a slight one.
He has to be really good
not
this year. Not
egregious.
He has to be like a really good player, to justify it this year. But I will say, famously, with Mike Budenholzer on the Bucks, a lot of people said it didn't go well with him and Mike Budenholzer. It didn't quite work in the past. Mike Budenholzer came to the Suns. He played a little worse. Found a way to put it together at the end of the season to sort of save all his efficiency stats, and I think he ended up shooting over 40% from three by the end of the season. But like that, it's not entirely out of the question to say that the pairing of Mike Budenholzer and Grayson Allen was not a good pairing for whatever reason. There's evidence for that in the past. We could see him get to that Frank Vogel level, and if he gets to that level, he'd be pretty great. I made the case, I think, in the past that he could find a way to be one of the players on the Cavs. Like, I think he would have fit perfectly on that Cavs team, Grayson Allen. And I think that's not entirely crazy to say that he can do what he would have done for the Cavs for the Suns, of course, without maybe top-level talent that they have, but he can be a contributor. We talked about the starting five. We talked about the two veterans off the bench. Who's the next most important player?
Yeah.
Next season. I think it's important to say next season for them to be good.
No, it's such a good question, because honestly, if this were a long-term conversation at all, this is where we'd bring up Malawach. There's a world where I don't know, is Nick Richards going to play next year? Like, do we talk about Nick Richards, or are those just Malawach's minutes for sure? I really don't know.
I think, I don't know. Well, we'll talk about Malawach in a second. I'll make the case right now that I think it's Colin Gillespie.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think Colin Gillespie is definitely a guy I legitimately feel pretty optimistic about, and I'm always happy to talk about him.
We're eight players into the this conversation, and this is the first point guard we're talking about, which makes him very important to me. There is, in a regular season, there's 82 games. You need a point guard often, and we've seen that with the Suns. When they don't have one, they clearly need one. And for the Suns next season, he's the guy, he's the point guard on the roster that is sort of guaranteed playtime at this point based on how the front office, the ownership group, well, the owner, feels about him. We know that they like him. We know that they consider him a victory from what they got last year. And I think they're right to do that. He won an award on our podcast. So he's a good player. And I think there's a world where there is more to be tapped in there.
Easily.
He's 26, right? So he's not young necessarily.
Peak physical form.
Yeah.
26 years old. I think statistically that's your prime.
Yeah.
This is it. I think Gillespie's going to come in with excellent conditioning. Just because we know he's a hard worker and this is his real opportunity to earn, like, you know, he got this contract, but to earn a bigger contract after this, he's just going to provide a consistent jolt of energy off the bench. And that combined with his skill, his ability to play on the ball, off the ball, shot a high percentage last year, finished off plays, did not really turn the ball over, applied pressure defensively. He could shoulder a 20-minute per game load. Yeah. And I would not at all be surprised.
Me too. I feel pretty similarly. I think there's a world where he plays well with Devin Booker and he plays well with Jalen Green. So like
right,
he can,
exactly.
You know, the minutes that they play together, they'll find ways to put him on the floor with both of those guys throughout the regular season. And you know, some of those guys will miss time and he'll play more. He'll start games this season for sure. So that his role and what he can contribute is going to be really important. The thing about him, why it's easy to make an optimistic case for him, efficient. He you know, like the efficiency that he had in the G League sort of came into the league once he found his role. Like I think it's fair to look at some of the games and say not always efficient, but like once they sort of found a role for him, he was efficient at an NBA level, and he can play on and off the ball. Like he can find ways to score off the ball. He's a good catch and shoot shooter. And he's a pretty good rebounder for his size. He's pretty good at passing the ball. He doesn't really turn the ball over much. You know, like there's just so much to it where it's like, okay, all of these stats are pretty good. The one stat that you look at that's not very good, he's 6'1". You know, it'd be nice if he was 6'4".
6'1", not a great finisher at the rim. But like, you know, this is a guy, we don't need Colin Gillespie to come in and, don't get me wrong, it'd be awesome if he was the next Jalen Brunson or whatever, right? Yeah. But like, no one needs Colin Gillespie to come in and beat Jalen Brunson. We want you to be a guy who plays defense, rebounds the ball well for your size, and just has these connective skills and shoots 40% from three. He shot 40% from three last year. Yeah. He was one of the most exciting guys to watch, if not the most exciting guy to watch outside of, like, I don't know, the Stars in the back half of last season. So
I think he actually needs to look
there's no
to
reason
score
to feel...
more. Like he needs to shoot more.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's going to be ample opportunity. We're talking about guys like
Ty Jerome for the Cavs, for example. He needs to play like that.
If Royce and Grayson are the main guys off the bench we've talked about so far, those guys are a little gun shy. You know, those are guys you kind of have to beg to shoot a little bit.
You have to pass it to them when they're wide open, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, and Gillespie has a lot of opportunity that he can seize there.
I think the way
as do all of these other prospects who we're about to talk about. Like, you know, Kobe Brea could take 8 shots a game off the bench, and I wouldn't be shocked. But Gillespie is the most likely candidate for this role.
I think, yeah, for sure. I think the way Ty Jerome played last year, if you watch Cavs games, is when he was on a heater, he's just dribbling down the court. They're playing fast in transition, and he's just pulling up from three and sinking threes, and he'll hit 3 1/4, and then the game will just be out of reach for the other team. There needs to be guys like that. I've made the case that Grayson could be a guy like that, potentially. I think there's a world where Colin Gillespie can find a role doing stuff like that. Will he be as good as Ty Jerome? Probably not. But like, I think there's a world where he makes a leap in a positive way to contribute towards winning basketball right now. And I don't even think it's like out of the question for Colin. Like, I almost feel like I would be more surprised if he was bad than anything else. I feel optimistic about Colin Gillespie next year.
I've watched a lot, on bad teams, and let's be real, the Suns were a bad team last year. I've watched a lot of young players have fake good stretches in the back half of a season. Enough, though, to the point where I think I can tell between like what is truly a fake stretch and what is not.
We weren't begging for Terrence Ross back. 2 years ago.
I remember Tyler Ulis averaging 15 and 10 assists on a terrible Suns team where he shot, 34% for the field and like got assists but didn't really make teammates better, right? Like there are guys who have fake stretches like that. And then there's Colin Gillespie, who was basically asked to be a role player. And yes, they were losing games, but not because of him. He was playing impactful minutes down the stretch. And I have faith in his ability to be a good role player in the NBA. I don't know about more than that, but a good role player.
What is the optimistic version of Kaman Malawach next year?
That he's a starting center in year one. Like, let's be real.
That's crazy. No, okay, that is very.
I don't think that's that. I don't think we're
He's
in
18.
optimism season. I know there's a world where Kaman Malawach is the starting center without like injuries notwithstanding. I'm saying there's a world where by
like he
February.
earns it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's possible. I'm not saying it's likely.
Yeah.
We're just saying today that it's possible. What would it require for him to be Yves Missi in year one? And by that I mean like just like forget the threes, forget the dribbling like a gazelle, the stuff we saw in Summer League that excited us about his future. All that he needs to do to be starter in year one is be a competent perimeter defender, but mostly just like a rock solid drop defender.
More like what he did at Duke. Yeah.
Exactly. And catch lobs.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you can do that and Mark Williams, really what happens here, because I just know if Mark Williams is healthy, his offense is going to be good. So this would mean that Mark Williams' defense is bad. If Mark Williams' defense is bad and Malawach is just able to plug a hole there immediately, and Ott senses that sort of like, that vibe shift when he's on the floor, then there's a world where he starts. It's
there's
probably
a world
not
where both
happen.
of them start, to be honest.
Yeah, that could happen too.
I could see them just really fully leaning into offensive rebounding and just trying to figure that out. For him, my optimistic take is, I appreciate how optimistic you are, but to me, I think if he is able to contribute in a positive way in year one, that is... that is good. He's just very young. I don't want people to to hear this and think I'm being a hater. He's very young. It's not common that players at his age come into the league and contribute positively immediately. I don't think it's out of the question for him to do that. I do think it's probably out of the question that he's going to do that in like October, November.
Yeah.
But I think that there's a world where he starts to figure it out. The chemistry starts to build with the players that are on the floor. And then he finds a way to positively contribute throughout the rest of the season. And by the end of the year, you look at his season and go, actually, yeah, he's playing pretty well right now. And that is the optimistic take. And I think that's a good thing. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. His ceiling is high, but he's 18.
For the over-under episode, I feel like you got to tackle Malawach's field goal percentage somehow, because it could be anywhere, man.
Wow,
if he takes threes, if he takes a lot of threes, he could shoot 45% from the field as a rookie.
Yeah.
Like, that would not shock me.
Yeah.
Or, he could just dunk the ball in the dunker spot and be at 68%. That wouldn't be crazy either. So, I don't know. There's a
couple more players in the team. And by the way, Kaman Malawach, don't get me wrong, like, we're having a short conversation about him now. His importance to the team is higher than everyone else we spoke about before this, except Devin Booker probably. But next season, we're talking about optimistic take for next season. He doesn't even have to be great for them to be potentially good. Over time, like, his development is of vital importance, but not necessarily next season. There's three more guys that I think could have a role next season that's important. Nigel Hayes-Davis, Rasheer Fleming, Kobe Brea.
Oso.
Oh, and Oso Ighodaro. Yes, sorry.
Four guys,
really.
Nick Richards. Do we want to cover Nick Richards?
Yeah, I mean, Nick Richards just needs to be a solid bench center, which I think he's capable of.
I don't know what to say about Nick Richards. He is who he is.
Yeah.
Maybe he just, like...
He's not a starting center. He started on the Suns, and that wasn't fair to him. He can easily be a good backup center.
Okay, the one thing I have to ask you about Nick Richards, though, is... Do we want him to like fully explore the Jimbo Richards thing where he's just taken?
Yeah.
But do we?
Yeah.
For those who just tuned out at the end of last season and don't remember, Nick Richards was kind of hitting mid-range jump shots.
They were short mid-range jump shots, though. They were like 13-foot jump shots.
Okay, but some of them were elbow, like 15-footers. He was at the elbow making jumpers. And I guess the question is, like, do you want him taking those, or would you rather he just dunks the ball? Because don't get me wrong, it's nice if he makes that shot, but it's still like a 50% shot versus dunking the ball. And he is Nick Richards, right? Like, he's nice. You don't want to run your offense through Nick Richards.
Totally, yeah.
I guess it's a nice thing to have. That's my only Nick Richards take. I don't.
Okay.
I think it's fun to talk about the mid range elbow development for
took
him.
17.
But I don't know how much we really care.
Based on the NBA stats, he took 17 mid range shots last year.
And he made like 10. Right?
He made 8, 47%.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like, I think it's occasionally fine if defenses are sagging off him. He's 14 feet away that he takes a jumper. I think that's fine. Because he has no touch, like when it comes to like floaters or hook shots. So we're talking either that mid-range face-up where he can shoot like a normal jumper and his touch is fine there, or he's got to dunk it. And that's like
that's basically what they say about Anthony Davis too, right?
Yeah, kind of.
Nick Richards.
Anthony Davis is so good through
ceiling
contact, but yeah.
Is Anthony Davis? Yeah, no, I'm fucking around.
Yeah.
But all right, Nick Richards not that important. It'd be nice if he's competent.
Yes.
Can we talk about Oso?
Yes.
I'll start. You want me to start?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Welcome back, prime Ben Simmons. There's your best case scenario for Oso.
Lamar Odom. Yeah.
Lamar Odom, Boris Diaw.
Yeah.
Just a power forward now.
A Swiss Army knife. Yeah.
Swiss Army knife who really makes quicker decisions on the ball. Inverted pick and rolls galore. And of course, I'm being a little bit hyperbolic here because I know, practically speaking, a lot of Oso's minutes, probably most of Oso's minutes this year, are still going to come at center, I think.
I don't know. I really don't know.
Maybe 50-50.
I think that's probably
definitely the versatility is the selling point.
I think he's
and
better
so how
than
well
Nick
he
Richards.
looks in the versatility, we'll see.
He's better than Nick Richards, even as a center, I feel like. So, like, I feel better about him next season than Nick Richards. I don't think he was better than Nick Richards all last year. But yeah. For him, it's just like find a way to up that assists to like 3 per game, 3.5 maybe. And that would be huge for the Suns because then you can find ways to run the offense through him occasionally.
Yeah, I mean, I would just love to see, the continued defensive rebounds. Not, like, I don't think this should be a go-to in the offense, but they did it in Summer League, and I want Oso to feel the freedom to grab a defensive rebound and just take it and go. Don't waste time, trying to pitch ahead to anyone else to run the offense. Just run the offense yourself. Go straight into a handoff, inverted pick and roll, whatever. And just kind of freelance it a little bit. Honestly, I would give him that freedom just to see what he's capable of. Other than that, because Oso is so far off from developing a jumper, even in my optimistic projection, I'm not expecting a jumper from him this year.
He can't. He's got no form to do it. Yeah,
but I would like to see 60% or better from the free throw line. I feel like that is not too much to ask for. Actually, what did he average this last year?
40 something, I think. Yeah,
I think that might have been Ryan
Dunn. It may have been both.
He was at 50. He was at 58.
Okay, that makes me feel better. Yeah.
So I would like to see 65.
Yeah,
give me 65 from the free throw line, and that's really all, man.
Or they're just going to foul him anytime he's on the floor. Yeah.
Exactly. Other than that, just play defense, get assists, do your thing.
Real quick,
trust the process.
We'll fly through the last 3 here. Nigel Hayes-Davis. You talk about the Norm Powell leap here. Nigel Hayes-Davis, he needs to be. For me, if he can be a 6'8" movement shooter on this team, that would be massive.
Who also finishes through contact and shoots free throws well.
Yes, and can dribble a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a real
He needs to be a guy
ceiling.
that guys or fans of other teams are going, who the hell is this guy? Why is he cooking
exactly?
Us? Once a week or something.
So my expectation of Nigel Hayes-Davis, truthfully, is that he doesn't play much. But my optimistic case of what I think he can do, there's no reason he can't average double digits. He could be he could average 12 points a game off the bench this year and be firmly entrenched as the Yabusele signing of this year, which is to say the guy who came over from Europe where everyone's like, oh shit, that guy's actually good. He could 100% do that. He could be their 7th man.
Especially if they end up trading Grayson Allen, which, we're talking optimistic cases here, but there isn't a version of an optimistic version of the Suns is that they find a way to find a more size fit power forward by trading some of these guys. And that could mean Grayson Allen's off the team and Nigel Hayes-Davis has a bigger role all of a sudden. The other two guys, Rasheer Fleming and Kobe Brea, if they show what they did in college in the NBA, that's pretty big. Like it's as simple as that. They just do what they did in college in the NBA. Some of that translating for Rasheer Fleming, because Rasheer Fleming, if you look at his stats, he looks like he would be an awesome NBA player right away because he finished at the rim, he shot really well, and he's really tall, has really long arms. If that translates to the NBA, he's going to play minutes. I don't know how they're going to do it, but they're going to have to find minutes for him. And then same with Kobe Brea, who was the best shooter in college last year. And if that translates in any way, we're talking about Grayson potentially being available. That's another thing, right? If Nigel Hayes-Davis and Kobe Brea are good, Grayson's available.
I am a little bit tempted to say that if these guys are playing major minutes and the team is winning, then they're probably mostly victory cigars.
Yeah.
I think, they're a little bit more buried down in the rotation, especially Kobe Brea, who's on a 2-way contract. But I could see them contributing. Both of them. I don't think it's a stretch.
I think it's probably a bit of a stretch to say they're going to contribute to winning right away now. It's a stretch to say that with all rookies in some ways. But just showing that some of those skills can translate, I think, would be a victory for the Suns. And that, to me, is it. With Kobe, I think the shooting will probably translate. So for him, it has to be some of the other stuff that translates. But for Rasheer, to me, defensively, he has to find a way to guard forwards for him to have a career in the NBA. And if he can find a way to do that and the offense translates in any way, that'd be big for the long-term trajectory for the Suns. But yeah, like you said, there's too many veterans ahead of these guys in the rotation right now. They just need to find ways to play well when they're forced to play in those minutes for injuries or whatever reason.
I just had to look up to remind myself where Jared McCain was drafted in last year's draft. And he was taken 16th, so a decent amount before Kobe Brea. Because I was like, man, Jared McCain had such an awesome rookie season as kind of a slightly undersized shooting guard. And Brea is actually bigger than him, I think.
And McCain had some awesome off-ball shooting, too. He was... dare I say Steph Curry,
just came out of nowhere and was like, oh my God, this guy can put 30 on you.
Mm-hmm.
I say, in the most optimistic of projections, that Kobe Brea feels like a guy who just comes out of nowhere, drops 25 off the bench, and has an opposing fan base literally crying. Literally saying, who the fuck is this guy? So I could see that. Rasheer Fleming, I don't see that type of scoring pop in his future.
Yeah.
I'd love to be proven wrong. I think with him, it's more like, can you give us a couple straight line drives?
Yeah.
Can
Dunks.
you give us...
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the corner threes or the wing threes for Rasheer Fleming are probably a given. I believe that his shot is at least pretty good.
That'd be awesome if that's true. We'll see.
But I would love to see, any sort of off the bounce type game from him in year one. That would mean things are really coming along for him.
Feeling pretty optimistic?
I think we fulfilled our role today.
Should we do a pessimism podcast for Patreon? No, I'm just kidding.
There are a couple of people who
would like that.
There are.
Yeah. Masochists.
Most of them would not. Most of our listeners would not like that, but I know for a fact a couple of listeners who would like the pessimism season.
That's podcast. For April and May. that's when that episode comes. No, but for now, I think we covered everyone. I think we could have even gone longer on some of these guys, but I wanted to make this podcast a reasonable length after releasing 3 hours of podcasts last week about the Suns in August. I tried to make this one a little more reasonable, but yeah, that's all I got. You got anything else before we go?
I don't think so. We'll have to find a reason to be back at you guys in a few days.
Yeah. So thanks everyone for listening. Sign up, patreon.com/thetimeline. Extra podcast, access to our Discord there. We appreciate you all. And yes, we'll be back soon.